30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS is number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got Stuart Kovacs, Moist Mike. We are rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific today. A whole lot to do. As we did see yesterday, Caitlin Clark's college basketball career come to an end. And it did come to an end in a defeat, as you did see South Carolina win an undefeated national championship. And you continue to have the great legacy of Coach Dawn Staley just get better and better. And we know the men's tournament does conclude tonight, where we will have one shining moment. And I hope we get a good game between UConn with Donovan Clingan going up against the other big fella, the bigger fella, in Zach Edey of Purdue. So a whole lot to do today. Debbie Antonelli is going to join us at 3:40 p.m. Eastern. Josh Pastner, who used to coach on John Calipari's staff all the way back to Memphis, he's going to stop by at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific today. Let's start, though, even though we're coming off the Women's National Championship. We have the Men's National Championship game tonight. We're going to start with the biggest news in sports, and that is that John Calipari is off to Pig Suey with Arkansas, and he's going to call the Hogs. Now, I think this is a win-win for all around. It's good to get the ball rolling on the future now if you are Kentucky. And then for Arkansas, this is a home run hire. This is a massive hire. This is a behemoth hire for your program. And it's crazy with this hiring cycle in college basketball. It has a big-time crazy college football coaching carousel feel, where all the dominoes really started to fall once you did have Andy Enfield surprisingly leave USC to go to SMU. And once that did happen, there was a domino effect where Eric Musselman, who is a sensational coach, elected to leave Arkansas to go out west to USC. And once you did see Kentucky lose to Oakland, the next day I got on the radio and I said, this is it for John Calipari. He may be back next year, but if I was running the Kentucky athletic department, I would get out now, even knowing that John Calipari, who's a Hall of Fame coach and still has good years left in the sport, but it did feel like that era at Kentucky and the window to win a national championship was over and done with. And the biggest reason I felt that way was because even Samter said, no, he just needs to adjust. And I tried to explain, when you have someone that is as iconic and legendary as John Calipari and is one of the faces of the sport, and he is an older guy, he's not going to adjust. He's not going to do things that are drastically different. And also, what people wanted him to adjust was to take less one-and-done players and develop more 3- and 4-year guys in college to win that way. Well, John Calipari didn't have that time because his ass was on the hot seat. And the only thing that was saving him was a $34 million buyout. And you had a feeling he was going to be back because of that $34 million buyout. But once the Arkansas job becomes open, and I'm not saying any of us anticipate or any of us seriously thought John Calipari was going to take another job and it was going to be in Arkansas, but if there are connections and if there are money aspects of it that do appeal to him, it was obviously on the table. And as since it's been reported, John Tyson of the Tyson Chicken Group, massive booster, friend of John Calipari, massive booster to Arkansas. Also Jerry Jones. According to sources, John Calipari was appealed by the booster power that Jerry Jones and also the Broncos co-owner Rob Walton, who is a graduate of Arkansas. So I think Cal had the foresight to realize it's probably unlikely that I change the opinion about me in the next few years at Kentucky. And let's not just kind of look past it. What John Calipari did for Kentucky was he brought another national championship. He brought a ton of NBA players, and he restored the program back to where they need to be as a blue blood. But all good things come to an end. We're talking about nearly 2 decades of him being at Kentucky. And you need a new coach, and you needed someone else to come in to start to build the process for Big Blue Nation for the next championship team. Because you look at what has transpired the last 4 years. The farthest they've gone in the tourney was to the round of 32. They've missed the tournament. They've lost to St. Peter's. They've lost to Oakland. And in one other year, they won one game and then lost right before the Sweet 16 in the round of 32. So I was always of the belief that Kentucky needed to get out now rather than just kick the can down the road for another year or two when you start to see the buyout just truncate and the buyout just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So Kentucky fans, even though the fear of the unknown is real, I think the Kentucky fan, though, grew tired of Coach Cal and realized when you have such a passionate fan base that is a blue blood program and is used to winning, right? Championships. With Coach Cal there, it turned into championship or bust. And I know in a 68-team tournament, it's very tough to win the championship. But you have to ask yourself, was John Calipari going to win another title at Kentucky? And it was a resounding no. So if you know that the answer to that question is a resounding no, you could either delay the inevitable, pay the buyout, or have him go somewhere else. And it was the last option that none of us thought was actually going to happen this offseason. But there was a spot in Arkansas that has been good the last few years under Coach Musselman. You have the booster background, and also Cal going there, he will have like this godlike presence at Arkansas. And what I mean by that is a hire for Arkansas, which if you would have told me 3 years ago, John Calipari on his own would elect to leave Kentucky for Arkansas, I would say, what are you smoking? It's almost as if you're a guy and you're at a bar and you start talking to a girl that's way out of your league and somehow you end up going home with her. Arkansas is the above average dude, fine looking dude that pulls the 9 or 10 at the bar. Because that is what John Calipari is in terms of name recognition. And John Calipari is going to have a ton of resources. We've already seen the reported NIL fund that he's going to be able to work with at Arkansas and all the rumors there. And he's going to have now a new life feel, and he's going to be re-energized because he is, for the first time in a while, after you had your ass kissed for so many years, being doubted. And people are saying this is the end of John Calipari's coaching career. So this is a major win for Arkansas. But let's not lose sight of the fact that this is also a win for Kentucky for 2 reasons. Number one, you avoid having to pay what would have been nearly a $34 million buyout to get out now, to get out this offseason. John leaves on his own power. John leaves on his own accord. You don't have to pay the buyout. And from that, you could either use that money that you may have used to buy out John Calipari or half of it to go buy out another coach, or you use those funds if a buyout is smaller, or maybe you don't have to pay a buyout at all with some of the names that are out there, former college coach and a guy that's in the NBA now and Billy Donovan, to go sweeten up the pot to give a lucrative contract to the next guy. And it's all about building the next championship team. No one's going to say John Calipari's a bad coach or John Calipari is trash. Did he underachieve the last few years with the talent that he had? Absolutely. Like, we look at Nick Saban with the talent that he had. We look at Kirby Smart with the talent that he has. We've looked at Coach K with some of the names that he's had. If you ever go through a stretch where you're stuck on your last championship and years go by where you're not winning the next one, it's just the natural part of sports. We say, can this guy win again? And I don't think John was ever going to adapt out of what was required out of him to go win a next championship at Kentucky. And this, at most, had 2 years left on this marriage. At most. And I didn't think we were going to get to 2 more years. I thought they would have moved on from John Calipari next offseason. But now he moves on from you, and it's almost like, okay, yeah, we lose our coach, but it was the right time. This is a divorce right now that I don't think is nasty. This is a divorce right now where the couple has been together for all these years, right? You got beautiful children. You had a happy marriage. You were successful. Everyone's got money. Everyone looks back at the John Calipari era and they could say, okay, that was a success. But you realize that the marriage was no longer working. And the AD at Kentucky was no longer happy. John was no longer happy. And Big Blue Nation was no longer happy as well. It doesn't mean that just because a split is happening, that the overwhelming tone needs to be negative, and it needs to have vitriol, and it needs to have animosity. I think everyone could look around and say, okay, this is right. And yes, you don't want to see a coach leave for another school in the SEC, but I don't think the Kentucky fan fears John Calipari anymore because of all the talent that he's had recently and the way that he was not able to get it back to a championship level. And by a championship level, I mean winning another national championship game. And it's good for the sport because now you get Cal leaving in conference to the SEC, and it works out for all parties. And now it becomes a big question. What's next for Kentucky? I tweeted this out right when I saw the news last night. And let me give credit to Wes Moore, who's a local reporter in Arkansas. Now, this is nothing against Wes, but I somehow saw this tweet last night, a few minutes after 9 o'clock, where he said, multiple sources are telling me Arkansas is zeroed in on John Calipari. Barring any last-minute issues, I expect him to be the Razorbacks' new head coach. When I saw that, I said, okay, I don't want to dismiss it, but I saw no one else that usually breaks college basketball stories have it at that time. And I kind of look back, remember a year ago when Auburn was open before they hired Hugh Freeze, there was a local reporter that was like, up the Lane train, Lane Kiffin, he's leaving Ole Miss and he's taking the Auburn job. And then Lane Kiffin was trolling the reporter because the information ended up not being right. So I took this report with a grain of salt, but it was so direct, it was so specific, and also it came after 10 days ago? You had the AD and you had Calipari trying to put on a front that every little thing was going to be all right, and they have a lovey-dovey relationship when we all knew that wasn't true, and they did that forced TV interview. So it was one of those tweets where you just kind of raised an eyebrow. You go, interesting. A little Larry David-like. You do the stare with the eyes. And you were waiting to see if the national media was going to pick up on it. And then shortly after that, and give credit to Wes Moore because he was all over the story, the national media picked up on it and they were able to confirm it. And the moment when that news was confirmed, once again, I thought it was win-win. But then I thought about who could be the next head coach for Kentucky. You got to call Jay Wright. You got to call Danny Hurley. That will be a no from Jay Wright, and that will be a no from Danny Hurley. But you at least have to hear the word no from those two legendary coaches. I don't think Rick Pitino is happening. I guess you can't do the I'm coming home ditty anymore, so maybe we go Bon Jovi. Who said you can't go home? I do not believe Rick Pitino is going to be in play. So from that, I zeroed in on three names right away. And this is how now a lot of the reporting is going too, and a lot of the speculation is going. Scott Drew from Baylor, he won a national championship at Baylor. He walked into Baylor under unprecedented circumstances, and look where he's brought that university. Scott Drew would be a phenomenal choice. I do believe Nate Oates, I know his buyout is $18 million also. People saying, Kentucky can't afford an $18 million buyout for Nate Oates. Give me a break. And that would continue the domino process of just craziness from this coaching carousel in college basketball. And then the last name I zeroed in on was Billy Donovan, who we all know went to all those Final Fours of Florida, won the back-to-back national championships, but hasn't coached in college basketball in quite some time because he's been in the NBA with the Thunder and now the Chicago Bulls. He also was a longtime assistant on the Kentucky staff in the 80s and 90s. So you look at that, and those three names, this is Kentucky. This is prime real estate. This is like Alabama football, right? When Saban elected to retire and that job was open. This is the creme de la creme names. You're not settling, and I'm not saying it's wrong to settle, but you don't have to be Louisville, who gets a Pat Kelsey, right? And Pat Kelsey, I think, is going to do a really good job at Louisville. But you get the top names. And when I look at the top names that are realistic for this job, and I don't know if Billy Donovan will take it, but I think the three realistic names that have a chance to take it and could take it and I think would be positive hires are Nate Oates at Alabama, Scott Drew at Baylor, and then Billy Donovan, who's currently in the association with the Chicago Bulls. One of those three names to me have to be the choice for the next head coach of the Kentucky Wildcats. How do you react to Coach Cal saying goodbye to Kentucky and hello to Arkansas? Do you agree that this is a win-win situation for all parties? And who should be the next head coach of the Wildcats? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. You can always get at me on Instagram and Twitter, at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. We'll take a timeout. Caitlin Clark falls short in the national championship game. Is she to blame for the loss? And why a lot of WNBA players embarrassed themselves over the weekend in this entire GOAT debate. We'll get to all that on the other side.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
Congratulations to South Carolina and Dawn Staley winning another national championship. Undefeated national champions yesterday, getting the best of Caitlin Clark and Iowa. I thoroughly enjoyed the women's tournament. I thought the 3-game run that we really did highlight recently for Iowa, starting with LSU, and I know that was in the Elite Eight, but you having Iowa get their revenge, Caitlin Clark, and seeing Angel Reese and Kim Mulkey, and another round of that. And from there, you had on Friday night, UConn with Paige Beckers going up against Iowa's Caitlin Clark. I put a video out there that a lot of Iowa fans didn't like. I did not think that an offensive foul call should have been made there in the last 10 seconds of the game, but it was. Iowa got the ball back, and they never gave it back to UConn, and then that did set up this national championship game that we got to see yesterday between South Carolina and Iowa. And just do a quick recap on that. The start that Iowa got off to, it was a blazing hot start, and they built a 10-point lead, and Caitlin Clark was just borderline, not borderline, she was sensational in that first quarter, where she had 18 points, and Ryan Ruocco had a great call where the shot was so far that he said it was from the future, which was such a brilliant call. And I've never heard a play-by-play person say it that way. And you walked away from the first quarter, and it was like, all right, that was the Iowa run. How long can Caitlin Clark maintain this? And in the second quarter, you could tell she was tired because she was just at a ridiculous pace in the first quarter. And it was, can you get it in striking distance at the end of the third and then just go all out in the fourth? And there were times where they got it down to 4 or 5 in the fourth quarter, but you never felt in the fourth quarter that Iowa was going to win. And it's no disrespect to Caitlin Clark's teammates, but there were times where she moved so quickly. And I don't want to say it's an underappreciated part of her game because we all know it, but everyone talks about the threes because how far she shoots the three-point shot. It just, you're enamored by it. And your jaw hits the floor. It's Steph Curry-like. She's the female version of Steph Curry. But her passing actually may be better than her shooting. And her teammates, not that she doesn't have good teammates, but she doesn't have the same caliber and the same quality of teammates as we see on UConn or as we see on South Carolina. And she passes the ball so hard and she passes the ball so quickly. And it's always like a dime, but sometimes she just moves so much quicker than her teammates that the passing is too good. And there were moments in that game, and you saw it up against UConn, her teammates stepped up. You saw it up against LSU, her teammates stepped up. But there wasn't enough of a consistency from her teammates yesterday where you knew that she was going to give you like two just ridiculous quarters, but it was the other two quarters. Can the teammates weather the storm? And they weren't able to. And also, let's just make the more obvious thing and the most obvious comment. South Carolina is just a bigger basketball team than Iowa. And they impose their will and their physicality down low in the post. And there was just nothing that you could do when a team just overpowers you like that in the paint. So it was a great women's tournament, even though South Carolina did win. And you want to tip your cap, obviously, to Dawn Staley. Congratulations to her. Her program, with all that they lost from a year ago and getting upset by Caitlin Clark and Iowa, to then quickly rebuild and not only have it at a good form, but a perfect form, it obviously deserves a standing ovation. But this women's tournament is going to be remembered as the end of Caitlin Clark's college career. And Iowa made one Final Four before Caitlin Clark got to their university. They made two with her there and also two championship performances. They lost both of them to LSU and obviously the other day to South Carolina. And this debate, because this is what we do now in media, it's always, who's the GOAT? Who's the GOAT? And it's weird because I'll play you some audio, and the way that it was asked to Breanna Stewart, they didn't say, is she the greatest? They just said, is Caitlin Clark one of the greats? And from Breanna Stewart to Diana Taurasi and, even Lynette Woodard, I thought that there was a lot of jealousy and a lot of unnecessary, what felt like hate directed to Caitlin Clark in the last few days leading up to this championship game. And I don't understand that. Because I'm not going to sit here and say Caitlin Clark is the greatest women's college basketball player ever. Because when you're in that fraternity of greatness, yes, championships do matter. And Caitlin Clark doesn't have a national championship game. And I've said this throughout the entire tournament. I'll say it again. She's the most important, though, women's college basketball player ever. When you talk about a women's basketball game doing better than some college football games, and just the ridiculous ratings and 12 and 14 million people watching, no one has made me pay more attention to women's college basketball than Caitlin Clark. I love some of these storylines. I love UConn growing up as a kid. The dominance on the men's side, the dominance on the women's side. Tennessee, with all their great teams that they had. Now, there was a lot of reasons to watch women's college basketball. But it never resonated with this country and resonated with us as sports fans more than the last 2 years with Caitlin Clark. And only good comes out of it because it uplifts and provides more attention to the rest of the sport. And now Caitlin Clark is off to the WNBA where she'll be the number one pick in the draft. And I will watch something that I've never really done before. I will watch WNBA games coming up in a few weeks in May when Caitlin Clark is playing. I'm not going to sit there and watch every game, but she's just someone that captivates an audience. And I said this like the other day, outside of Steph Curry and outside of Patrick Mahomes, I don't think there's an athlete currently right now that makes you want to watch the sport more than her. And that's how great she's been, and that's how awesome she's been. Like, I was at lunch yesterday, and I said to my cousin who was visiting from Florida, we could meet at 1, but I need to be out of lunch at 2:40 because I need to get home and park my fat ass on the couch to watch Iowa and South Carolina. You know, I waited to go to the airport on Friday night until the end of that Iowa-UConn game. I was all over the Iowa-LSU game. And the women's game is in a really good spot with Paige at UConn coming back, Juju Watkins at USC coming back, Angel Reese off to the WNBA, Cardoza off to the WNBA out of South Carolina, and now obviously Caitlin Clark off to the WNBA out of Iowa. But it was just unfortunate with some of the comments that Breanna Stewart and then Diana Taurasi did make over the weekend. And here's what you're entitled to your opinion. I'll play the Diana Taurasi, and this was from the Final Four from the UConn-Iowa game. And she was just asked, if you had the number one pick in the draft, they're both coming out this year, would it be Paige or would it be Caitlin? And this is what Diana Taurasi had to say.
I'm taking Paige. Next question.
So if you had the number one pick this year, you would take Paige over Caitlin?
Absolutely.
I like that energy.
Okay, why? You just dismiss it. Like, Paige Buckets was phenomenal before the injury. She's returned and she's done great things. But Caitlin Clark is the better player. And you just dismiss it like that. And there were other comments where she's basically saying, oh, you know, things are going to change in the WNBA for Caitlin Clark and a lot of these other ladies. It's just, it seemed very unnecessary by Diana Taurasi. Here is Breanna Stewart on Sirius XM. Listen to how she responded about if Caitlin Clark needed to win a national championship.
You are the expert on this since you have 4.
Yeah.
Does Caitlin Clark need a championship to be considered one of the greats in women's college basketball history?
Yeah, she does. I think so. Because then you're gonna look 10 years back and you're gonna see all the records she's broken and the points and stuff like that. But anybody knows, you know, your goal when you play college basketball is to win a national championship. So you need one.
The question wasn't, is she the greatest? It was, could she be one of the greats? And Breanna Stewart there sounded like Jay Will, who also sounded like a dope, when he was saying, oh, I can't say she's great until she wins a championship. And I understand the resumes Breanna Stewart and Diana Taurasi have, but no one has talked more, you know, and no one has brought more attention to women's college basketball than Caitlin Clark. And guess what? Her career is now over and she doesn't have a championship. And I hate to dissect it this way too. You look at some of those UConn teams, the talent is significantly greater on those UConn teams than any of the teammates that Caitlin Clark's had. And look, she was able to bring Iowa to 2 championship games and 2 Final Fours. So I just thought Breanna Stewart's comment was unnecessary. Diana Taurasi, if you're going to say, oh, you take Paige over Caitlin Clark, fine, you're entitled to it, but you have to explain it. And it was just like a really arrogant tone from Diana Taurasi and a dismissive tone from Diana Taurasi. And maybe it's just filled with jealousy because those are all-time greats. Those are phenomenal basketball players. And maybe because they didn't get the spotlight as much as Caitlin Clark did, and she will continue to get, maybe that rubs them the wrong way. Here was the right way to handle it. This was the legendary coach Dawn Staley who won another national championship, and she thanked Caitlin Clark for all she's done to the game. This was courtesy of ESPN after the national championship win.
I want to personally thank Caitlin Clark for lifting up our sport. She carried a heavy load for our sport, and it just is not going to stop here on the collegiate tour. But when she is the number one pick in the WNBA draft, she's gonna lift that league up as well. So Caitlin Clark, if you're out there, you are one of the GOATs of our games, and we appreciate you.
Dawn Staley gets it. And I love what Dawn Staley did and what was a moment of euphoria yesterday in showing her respect and her thanks to everything that Caitlin Clark has done for the game of women's basketball. Debbie Antonelli, one of the best voices talking basketball, period, is going to join us on the other side. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Let's get an update first with the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Looking for a career path with flexibility and great pay and benefits? Go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today. The college basketball season comes down to UConn and Purdue tonight. The Huskies looking for their 6th national championship. Jim Calhoun made the school a national power. His former player, Kevin Ollie, added another title 10 years ago. And after back-to-back first-round defeats, Dan Hurley is looking to become the first repeat champion in 17 years and said the experience only gets better.
The experience, this setting, the buses, the police escorts, the 70,000 people in the state. I mean, it's an incredible experience. And it doesn't, the second time you make it feels just as good as the first.
The Huskies' 14-point win on Saturday was their closest margin of victory so far in this tourney. Purdue is looking for its first title after going 34-4 following their first-round upset at the hands of FDU a year ago. Aaron Bradshaw, the first Kentucky player to enter the transfer portal since John Calipari's departure. No games in the NBA are scheduled tonight. The Pirates, with the best record in the NL at 8-2, host the Tigers. The 8-2 Yankees take on the 1-9 Marlins. I'm Rich Ackerman.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, rocking and rolling. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. It's time to ask the pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Debbie Antonelli was on the call yesterday for Westwood One for the Women's National Championship game. You also saw her on your TV in the earlier rounds of the men's tournament, and she's one of the best voices in college basketball today, and she's kind enough to join us right now. Debbie, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this, and how you been?
Hey, Zach. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. Let me start you off with the big news last night. John Calipari leaves Kentucky, and he's going to Arkansas. When you saw that news play on out, just how did you kind of process that one?
A little known fact is I'm the first director of marketing and athletics at the University of Kentucky back in the late 80s. My first year at Kentucky was Eddie Sutton's last and Rick Pitino's first 3. So I have uniquely sat in a position learning and understanding that great Kentucky basketball brand. And I was a little bit surprised. I was surprised because the lifetime contract that Coach Cal had, and that he would leave that place to go to another institution inside the SEC. I'm not sure the reasons why. I'm sure we could speculate why he might have gone, but a new fresh start of something new, trying to reinvigorate what he loves to do and coach the game. And maybe he just needed another place to get it recharged.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what's going to be next for Kentucky as they try to win another national championship. And we know what the standards are for Big Blue Nation. I know you talked about Pitino. I think I would be more shocked about Cal leaving to go to Arkansas if we do find, in fact, the news that Pitino leaves St. John's and goes back to Kentucky. I just don't see that happening. How about yourself?
Well, I mean, Coach Pitino is in the latter stages of his career, yet he continues to excel at a high level. And he's often said that was the one thing that he wished he had reconsidered, was leaving Kentucky in the first place. I know how much he loves his basketball and his bourbon and his bluegrass. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was that. It's probably, I feel the opposite, actually, Zach. I'm more surprised that Cal left than I would be surprised to see Rick go back.
Who else do you think will be in play? Like, the names have been speculated: Nate Oates, Scott Drew, maybe Billy Donovan comes back to the college game. Are there a few names right now that intrigue you?
I'd throw Brad Stevens in there if he'd be willing to come back to college. But I know Billy. Billy has had great success on the college side. Now that college seems to be like the pros, I don't see it being that big of a difference because there is free agency and you can buy players. And I think now, because of the landscape of college basketball, I can definitely see Billy taking a look at it. And if he did, he would be the number one choice, I think.
Debbie Antonelli here with us. We'll get back to the men's game with the national championship game coming your way later tonight. But just how about the emotions that you're feeling with how much coverage and attention the women's game has received the last 2 years, and it just getting bigger and bigger by the games throughout the last 2 seasons?
You know what, Zach, I couldn't quite figure out how to put my finger on it last year, but I definitely figured it out in November, and I started calling it Clarkonomics, behind the play of Caitlin Clark. I mean, she has been the most positive disruptor in our game that we could have ever asked for. Very much like the LIV Tour was to the USGA and the PGA Tour. I think Caitlin's done a similar thing in our game. The attendance numbers, the ratings, all the attention around the game, the new people that are coming to our game to experience it and consume it for the first time, that is directly a derivative of what Caitlin has done. I heard this morning 45 different records in college basketball, if you count Big Ten, college, and what she's done in the NCAA tournament. And that is just absolutely remarkable when you consider the great names that she has passed along the path to achieve the scoring record. You have to have some context. I've been around the game a long time. I played against Cheryl Miller. I've covered all the players since. And it's just absolutely amazing to me what she's been able to do. So first off, let me say that. And I do think the first 50 years of Title IX was about opportunity. I think the next 50 is about investment. That's why the disruptor and the confluence of name, image, and likeness, the portal, and everything coming together on the women's side has equally helped the game grow. And then when you have Dawn Staley go 38-0 and win the national championship and win 3 in the last 7, that's just too good of a storyline to pass up by anybody who actually loves the game and loves women's sports. So it's been a fun ride. I hate that it had to end. I wish we could have kept playing because I think if we had played another week, we would have hit another ratings number. So it's all good, man. And I'm really excited about where the future's going.
What do you make about the GOAT debate with Caitlin Clark? I've said this. I don't consider her the greatest women's college basketball player of all time, but I think she's the most important with, like you said, how many eyeballs and how much attention she's brought to the TV sets. But I was kind of a little annoyed with the conversation over the weekend that some just couldn't say that she's great when obviously she's clearly a great basketball player.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lens of those that won the national championship that have the ability to say at a time in their career that that's how they can define greatness. But you have players on those teams that didn't score at a high level. Do you still, if they won a national championship, do you still consider them to be great? I think, to me, Caitlin is great. I think everything she's done around the game has been forward thinking and team first. And if you listen to her, it's team, then it's coaching staff and Lisa Bluter, and then it's the growth of the game. And it's in that order in some sort of fashion that her messaging is very clear and consistent. It's a great ambassador for our game. And then, my goodness, how can you not watch her play and see the things that she's been able to do when no one else has been able to do those things? So taking her team to the Final Four and to the national championship games back-to-back, to me, is good enough. And I would say this, Cheryl Swoops in 93 took a team that had great talent, but not lesser talent, just really solid basketball players. They won a national championship. I thought Diana Taurasi did the same thing in 2003. And then I thought Caitlin Clark did the same thing minus the championship. So I'm not discounting her in the greatness category at all. I think she is great. And I will continue to look at it through that lens.
And you just look back at the national championship game yesterday. The start was awesome with the 18 points in the first quarter. Her passing, it's weird to say that it's underrated with, I think, everyone knowing how great of a passer she is. It seemed like she got tired throughout the game because of how much pressure that was on her. But ultimately, I thought the difference in the game was just the size of South Carolina, how they dominated the paint. What stood out to you when you were watching the game yesterday on why South Carolina won?
Well, Zach, honestly, there's 38 times that South Carolina imposed their will on every team they play. They're just more physically dominant. They're bigger and longer. They're deep. They've got 2 deep at every position. The biggest difference for Dawn Staley's team from last year to this year is they had 2-way guards. And when you have 2-way guards that can defend and score, shoot the 3, and create space around that great interior game, you got a much better balanced attack. They had 7 players that averaged 8 points or better. They had the best bench in the country. They would average like 35 points off their bench. So this is a deep team. This was a balanced team. This is a team that was, trending in this direction the whole year. They were not number one the first week of the season, but they were number one the rest of this time. And although they did get challenged in the NCAA tournament, they always found a way to win. And they were just too much for Iowa in this national championship.
Let me get your thoughts on this, Debbie Antonelli. One of my colleagues, Maggie Gray, who hosts the morning show here at CBS Sports Radio, she said that Kentucky should actually place a phone call to Dawn Staley. Could you see Dawn Staley one day coaching in the men's game?
I certainly think she has the skill set to do so. She has the communication skill set. She has the teaching, the knowledge, all the things that come with it. I don't think there's any question she could do it. Now, does she want to do it? Because I've heard her mention many times that, there's not one piece of hardware that she's missing in her trophy case. So there's not anything that she has not done. What she does enjoy most about the college game and in this space right now, excuse me, is helping young women achieve what they want to achieve. She calls herself a dream merchant. And what she's trying to do is help these young women that come underneath her tutelage and help them become the best versions of themselves. And I've known Dawn for a long time, and I do believe that is true, Zach. I do believe that she knows that she has incredible influence and the ability to lift young women. And I think that's where her passion really lies. So I'd be surprised if she left to take a bigger job, unless it was so much more money, because she's doing pretty well at South Carolina. But if it was just a money bag situation that she just absolutely couldn't turn down, I think Dawn's quality of life is pretty good right now.
On the way out with Debbie Antonelli, getting to the men's championship game tonight. How does Purdue, right? We had these two just titans in the sport right now, but we know UConn is just a different beast as they're just steamrolling through everyone in this tournament. How does Purdue give UConn a game and make it close towards the end?
Well, I think they have to get it in a quarter court situation and just have Zach Edey have a big number. I'll be interested to see how Danny Hurley decides to guard Zach Edey. I think you got to give him different looks. I think you start out playing him straight up, see if you can put some pressure on him on the other end of the floor. But the guards, the backcourt, the speed, the versatility, the ability to share the ball are all things that, including their depth, that are just too powerful, I think, in the NCAA tournament on the men's side. And, they've been winning by double digits. They've won every game they played the last 2 years by double digits. I don't see that being a big difference here. And Purdue cannot turn the ball over. They have to make sure they make threes, they don't turn it over, and they make sure they feed the beast inside and let him go to work and see if they can put Donovan Clingan at a deficit with some fouls and see if they can force UConn to play small. Because I think there is a smaller lineup that UConn can play and still have success, but I think that's what you got to try to do.
She's Debbie Antonelli. Debbie, really enjoyed your coverage to the women's tournament and the men's tournament as well. Appreciate you carving out some time for us today.
Thanks for having me on, Zach. Please have me back.
Will do. Absolutely. We will definitely bring you back on, hopefully sooner rather than later. There she is, Debbie Antonelli, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And here's the other part, too, when it comes to the Caitlin Clark greatness conversation. And I've never watched more women's college basketball or women's basketball period than what I had the last 2 years. But to equate it to, the NFL, what, because Caitlin Clark doesn't have a championship, does that mean she's not great? Like, it's just crazy to me that this is even a conversation. You look at Barry Sanders. He doesn't have a championship in the NFL. He's one of the greatest running backs of all time. Dan Marino, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He doesn't have a championship. And that's just my thing. And when I heard Breanna Stewart say what she did, the question wasn't, is she the greatest? It's, is she one of the greats? And to say that she wouldn't be one of the greats and wouldn't be remembered because she didn't win a championship, that's just blasphemy to me. We're talking about 13, 14 million people watching these games. That is an unprecedented amount of coverage. That is an unprecedented amount of attention. So she's one of the greatest. She's not the best, but she is by far and away the most important person in the history of women's college basketball. And if you don't believe me, just look at the numbers the last 2 years and look how many times we've talked about it, others have talked about it, others have covered it, and the record-breaking viewership. I saw Craig Carden, our former colleague, say this. It's almost like a Tiger Woods effect, where you're just drawn to the TV set based off one individual. And that's what Caitlin Clark has done to the game of women's college basketball. But it's not just her. Like, Juju Watkins is sensational. Paige Becker's sensational. Cardoza at South Carolina, sensational. And a lot more. And I hope this train continues to move in that direction as well. We'll get back to Kentucky. Who will be their next head coach? We'll discuss that next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
And then away we go. Hour number 2 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Someone that knows John Calipari really well, Josh Pastner, the former coach at Georgia Tech and Memphis. He's going to stop by an hour from now, so we'll catch up with Josh once again 60 minutes from now. You can always follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at Zach Gelb. The two biggest stories right now in the world are the eclipse. Is that just going on for the last 2 hours and then it ends? Is this how this works, Samter? Because a lot of people today were like, oh, you probably won't be able to see it because you're going to be in the office here at 345 Hudson Street. And I guess by the time that we get out, even though the sun is still up and it hasn't set yet at 6 p.m. Eastern, I guess what everyone is seeing right now and wearing these fancy schmancy glasses so their eyesight doesn't get ruined and you're not like Odell Beckham Jr. from that gif from years ago where he was looking right at the sun. I guess that we will miss this and the ship will sail from our personal viewing of this. Is that the correct information there, Samter?
Yes.
Okay, so just 2 hours pretty much right there. So are you disappointed by that? Just wondering?
Yeah, I kind of would have liked to have seen the eclipse. I remember the last time I was in Chicago, I had the glasses on and I looked like an idiot, but it was still kind of cool to see.
I don't know. I have no desire to see this. Like my mother called me earlier this morning. She's like, did you get your glasses? I don't want your vision to be ruined. Like, are you going to go outside and watch this? I was like, absolutely not. I've seen enough pictures of it right now. I see everyone posting their selfies, going outside and looking up at the sun. And then you get the real tough guys and gals that are like, oh, screw these glasses. I'm going to look right at the sun. I've never cared less about something that people cared more about than the solar eclipse. No interest whatsoever. Stu, I guess you could break the tie here. Samter is very upset that they didn't give him an off day today and he wasn't able to join everyone else in the streets of New York City right now and look right up at the sky. I don't give a rat's ass. Where do you lie on this one?
I am with you. I really don't care, to be honest with you. I will see videos on social media later, I'm sure. That's enough for me. I don't need to see it.
And then you have, obviously, the big sports news, and that's John Calipari leaving Kentucky to go to Arkansas. And the first video has emerged of John Calipari. And John Calipari was walking around the neighborhood, and he was walking his dog, actually. And the dog was in a stroller, which is really lame. Unless the dog has a condition where the dog can't physically walk, and maybe it's an older dog, okay, you have to walk your dog, and you want your dog to get outside, so then maybe you have to put the dog in a carriage. I understand that, but then I saw that there was a video when he was getting hounded by the reporters where it started off the first 30 seconds, I guess the dog was in the carriage, I guess is what we'll call it, or the stroller. And then as that did go on, you did get to see the dog actually walking. But that to me, unless there is a physical issue with the dog, as someone that used to be a dog owner, and unfortunately my dog passed away a few years ago after living like 17 or 18 years, which is an incredible run for a dog, I would never envision getting a stroller to walk my dog. That's how you know you're rich, all right? That's how you know John Calipari is just sitting on bags and bags and bags of millions and millions and millions of dollars. You have a stroller for your dog? That's what we're doing right now? I don't think Stu has a dog, but I know Samter has a dog. Samter, please tell me your cute dog. You aren't one of these bougie snobs that has a stroller to walk your dog. You don't put your dog in a stroller, right?
No. I have very strong opinions about this. No dogs in strollers and no kids on leashes. Right? You see some of those kids with those backpacks with a little string that comes out and parents walking them around like a dog on a leash. The only exception for a dog in a stroller is if it's a really old dog who can't walk. Outside of that, there is zero excuse to ever have your dog in a stroller. It's either laziness or just not understanding how dogs work or just being too froofy and stupid. But never put your dog in a stroller as long as the dog is able to walk. Even if the dog doesn't want to walk, get that damn dog to walk. Do not put it into a stroller.
And here's the other thing. If you do cave, because I agree with you, if the dog physically can't walk, okay, then the dog needs a stroller to get fresh air. Totally understand that. But if you cater and coddle your dog to, okay, dad's trying to walk the dog, Coach Calipari's trying to walk the dog, but the dog is refusing to walk because it's like sniffing some grass or something like that, the moment you put the dog into the stroller, the dog is always going to think it's going to get the stroller. So therefore, the dog is going to refuse to walk. So I'm actually in agreement with you, Samter. I think it's laziness from the owner. Now, children on a leash, that always creeps me out as well. And if you can't control your kid and walk with your kid, and you have to put a leash on your kid, that's a problem. That's a parenting problem. I think parenting is the issue here, where as long as physically there's no issues, if you can't teach your kid how to somewhat behave, and I get it, everyone's had their temper tantrums. I had them as a kid. But my parents would never put a leash on me and say, Zach, we can't control you, so we're going to put a leash on you. And it looks so stupid, too. And guess what? If it's just because it's 2 or 3 kids, okay. Like, who was the Octo Mom? Remember her? Like, if you have 8 kids, all right, maybe then you need a leash to get everyone to walk together, even just one person. But 1 kid on a leash, I've never got that. And the dog in a stroller drives me bonkers. I just think it's just so stupid. It's so snobby. And it is lazy. Really, really lazy.
Now, the only exception that I have personally about kid on leash is
do you put your kid on a leash?
No. Well, I mean, she just started walking. She's not walking outside yet. She's like, we go to a park. But yeah, so she's not at that point yet. But soon, in the next 6 months, she's going to be running all over the place. But no, she will not go on a leash.
Good.
The only exception for kid on a leash is, I think, like Disneyland, Disney World, something like that, where you're in like a place that's so crowded and so crazy that you just have to kind of have like a secondary safety thing. That's the only exception I think that's even acceptable. I still wouldn't do it.
This is really going to be a hot take, and I think this could upset someone.
Uh-oh.
If you have to walk around in Disneyland and you could only control your kid if the kid is on a leash?
No, it's not even about controlling your kid. It's about there's so many other people around, something dangerous could happen. It's not about your kid. It's about other stuff around them. Disneyland, to me, I wouldn't do it personally, but I can see myself accepting
Hold your kid's hand then. You don't need a leash.
Well, first of all, okay, now, I'm short, I'm low to the ground, so holding my kid's hand is not a problem.
That's not difficult for you.
But for you, at 6 foot, 3?
6'4"?
Having to walk around for 10 hours at Disneyland, leaning over to hold your kid's hand?
Tough luck.
Yeah, no.
Tough luck.
Again, I would understand it. Again, for me, I wouldn't do it, but I wouldn't begrudge a parent who did it at a place like Disneyland or Disney World that was so busy.
No.
Any other
place,
you can't have this.
My father lost me twice in a public area. I wasn't on a leash. I was found. Nothing happened.
Well, you were lucky you were found.
My dad, we were skiing, and he followed the wrong kid down the mountain.
Oh, my
That
God.
was one. Nice. And then there was it was an Adventureland kind of place in Florida called Boomers. And my dad was playing one of the games, and I guess a young Zach Gelb wandered away, and I wandered away to a stranger. But once again, that doesn't mean that I needed to be on a leash or that I needed to a stroller's different for a baby, but I didn't need a leash. It was my dad needed to be a better parent there and a little more attentive. All right?
Well, you're also
or not follow the wrong kid.
You're also on a ski slope. Like if you had a leash on a ski slope, that'd be a whole other story.
But still,
that would be very
follow
funny.
the right kid. Know your kid. Maybe he was trying to lose me. I don't blame him, honestly. I was a pain in the ass as like a 3 or 4 year old or whatever I was at then.
I don't blame Pops there either.
Yeah, but come on.
Listen, I spent a couple days with you in Arizona this last week.
Oh, please.
I was trying to lose you every second of the day.
I am the easiest person to go on a road trip with. I am not a high maintenance person. I like to eat good food, like to have a few drinks, have a fun time. I am very, 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 very easy to road trip
We
with.
did eat good food.
We did. That pizza was great.
Yeah. Also, I was watching some review videos of that pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Not very good scores. I was very disappointed.
Really?
Yeah.
So what was the name of the place again?
Pizzeria Bianco.
Pizzeria Bianco.
There was a documentary on Netflix that was done about pizzas, and Pizzeria Bianco was like, this is the best pizza in the world type of
Well,
place.
no, it's not
It's called
the best
Neapolitan pizza.
Yeah. What's going on now? Do we have to put you on a leash so your phone doesn't ring during the show?
No, not on a leash, just like maybe a choker or something.
Jeez, that does not sound right. That doesn't sound right whatsoever. Another thing that's not going to happen on this show. Anyway, I thought the pizza was like an 8.8. I thought it was really solid pizza. It was great oven. It was well done. It was tasty. Good toppings. I would say overall, for the 3 pizzas we had out there, 8.8. And that's a pretty high score. I would go back, and I would not think twice about it, but the wait could be a little bit long, and thankfully we were able to get in and only have to wait 20 minutes. Anyway, so John Calipari's first comments were walking his dog, and the dog was in a stroller. I did not have that on my bingo card. But we get to Kentucky's next head coach, and here are the odds. Nate Oates at plus 350, Scott Drew at plus 450, Bruce Pearl at plus 600, Billy Donovan at plus 625, Danny Hurley at plus 650, TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State is at plus 800, Rick Pitino at plus 1100, and Jay Wright at plus 1200. The first 2 phone calls should easily, and I mean easily, be to Jay Wright and Danny Hurley. But you got no chance to land either. I don't think Jay Wright is ever going to coach college basketball again. If he does in fact return, it's going to be to the NBA, and I don't even know if he'll ever go to the NBA. But Jay Wright clearly does not like the transfer portal, does not like name, image, and likeness, and he had it made for him at Villanova, where he won 2 national championships, turned Villanova into a blue blood, and then got to another Final Four in his final season and said, that's it for me. Jay Wright is enjoying television. You have to at least hear him say the word no, but you have to make the phone call even though you expect him to say no. And then once Jay Wright says no, Danny Hurley, the moment this national championship game comes to an end tonight and UConn wins once again, you got to place a phone call to him. Danny Hurley is going to use UConn, not that he needs to use UConn, or Connecticut, I mean, to get a better deal at UConn. There's a 0% chance that Danny Hurley is leaving UConn to go to Connecticut. You have to hear them both, though, say no. So then after that, I don't think Pitino is going. Pitino probably would want to go. I don't think, though, right now Kentucky's going to say, let's get a reunion with Rick Pitino. I don't think it's going to be TJ at Iowa State. I like Bruce Pearl, and Bruce Pearl has taken Auburn to a Final Four, but I would be surprised if it's Bruce Pearl, especially when Auburn just also lost to Yale in the first round of the tourney, and a big reason why Cal is leaving is because he felt like he was on the hot seat, and you remember Kentucky, recent memory, just lost to Oakland, and then also St. Peter's. So I'd be surprised if it was Bruce Pearl. I think when you look at the 3 most realistic names and 3 people that I would have to imagine would be somewhat interested and that they are in striking distance for Kentucky. Because remember, this is like Alabama football being open. I know Alabama had a lot more recent success and they were the creme de la creme team of the sport for all those years. But this is a blue blood. This is a prime real estate job in college basketball. And you look at the buyouts, the 3 names that I zero in on are Nate Oates, Scott Drew, and Billy Donovan. Now, Billy Donovan doesn't have a buyout because he's coaching in the pros. I would think Billy Donovan, with his ties to Kentucky back in the late 80s and the early 90s, would consider it. But there's a reason why he hasn't coached college basketball in a while, right? That was the dude in college basketball for what he did at Florida. And then he elected to go to the NBA, coach the Thunder. And then once the Thunder and that job did come to an end, right away, he was to the Bulls. I'm going to guess that he stays in professional hoops. If there was one college job, though, that he would consider to leave the NBA, it would be Kentucky. Personally, if I was Billy Donovan, I'd rather be the coach of Kentucky than the coach of the Chicago Bulls right now. But I don't think that's how Billy Donovan is going to view it. So then you have Nate Oates and you have Scott Drew. The Scott Drew buyout is $4.5 million. The Nate Oates buyout is $18 million. Nate Oates just took Alabama to a Final Four. Nate Oates had success at Buffalo. Nate Oates has now had success at Alabama. And it would add to the drama of another SEC coach leaving one SEC school to go to the next. I don't understand why people are saying $18 million is too much to buy out Nate Oates at Alabama and then also give him a ridiculous contract to be the coach of Kentucky. We're talking about Kentucky basketball. Like Arkansas, through the Tyson Chicken, through the co-owner of the Broncos, who's on the Walmart team, obviously, Jerry Jones, like they were able to find the money to get John Calipari to Arkansas. I know they didn't have to pay a buyout, but they were able to find that money. So why wouldn't Kentucky, with their resources and their background, not be able to get a booster or a few boosters to afford the $18 million buyout? And remember, you don't have to pay Cal $34 million to not coach the team and to buy him out. So I think $18 million is attainable for Nate Oates. But if money does get a factor here, Scott Drew is probably the guy that they're going to hire, is my opinion. And let me be clear here, because sometimes in SEC country, people react to things that just is unwarranted. Like remember the A&M fan in football. When they freaked out over Mark Stoops potentially being their head coach and then ended up being Mike Elko, like look what Mark Stoops did at Kentucky for football. Why would you freak out about him getting the Kentucky coach and being the Kentucky coach? But let's remember, right, Mark Stoops doesn't have a national championship, right? Never made the college football playoff, never won the SEC, but it's never expected of him. If there is a similar reaction by the Kentucky fan to the hire of Scott Drew, I would be dumbfounded by that. Scott Drew won a national championship at Baylor. Think about that. So why couldn't he win with the resources at Kentucky? I think Scott Drew would be a home run hire. And when I look at the names of Billy Donovan, Scott Drew, and Nate Oates, and I'm a huge Nate Oates fan, but I would rather have Scott Drew over Nate Oates, and it's going to cost you less to buy him out. Scott Drew is a proven national championship winner. And there's reasons why he's not left Baylor, but if he's ever going to leave Baylor, it's time for a prime real estate job like this. So when we go through the names, Wright and Hurley will say, no, you got to ask. And then after that, you got to get one out of the three of these three names. Billy Donovan, Scott Drew, or Nate Oates. And ultimately, I think it's going to be Scott Drew. But what say you? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We'll take a break on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When we do return tonight, it's UConn up against Purdue. Who's going to win it all? Who's going to win the national championship game? We'll discuss when we return in 5.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, the road ends here for men's college basketball tonight with the national championship game in Phoenix, Arizona. as you do have the two best teams in college basketball going up against one another this evening. It doesn't always happen that way. Remember last year we had UConn up against the surprise story of San Diego State. But tonight you have the UConn Huskies going up against the Purdue Boilermakers, and you have the big matchup of the big fellas of Donovan Kling going up against Zach Edey of Purdue, who is the back-to-back National Player of the Year in college basketball. UConn's going to win the game. I would be surprised if we're sitting here tomorrow, nothing against Matt Painter, nothing against Purdue and Zach Edey, but I would be surprised if Purdue takes care of UConn tonight. UConn has really not even been tested this tournament, and I still think they could play to a different level and at a different level. And everyone was wondering, right, when we were in Phoenix, Arizona, what happens if UConn gets into a tight game? Because all these games in the NCAA tournament, Stetson, Northwestern, San Diego State, Illinois, it's been a walk in the park for them. Well, the game against Alabama, it felt like Alabama was starting to get in the game. They were starting to have momentum shift their way. UConn was in a little bit of a drought. And then instantly, I think it was like an 8-0 run or something like that. And once UConn was able to pull away like that, you said, okay, nice little test. Basically what Alabama did was they put the smelling salts underneath the nose of the UConn Huskies, and then boom, they were alerted. They realized, okay, this game's a little bit tighter than what it needs to be, and then they pulled away. I will not bet against UConn tonight. I already laid the 6.5 points. I would be surprised. I don't think this game's going to be a blowout. I think at moments in the game, you'll say, okay, UConn is not playing to their level. Purdue, maybe they're going to be in here for an upset, and maybe they're going to be able to pull it off. But as you get into the final 6 or 7 minutes, I do believe that that is where UConn is going to pull away. I think it's going to be a UConn victory. I think UConn's going to cover the 6.5 points on the spread, but I don't think this is going to be like an embarrassing performance where Purdue loses the game by 15 or 20 points. I'll take the Huskies by less than 10 points tonight, but I do think they're going to cover the number of 6.5 on the spread. So that's how I kind of think this is going to play out. I do wonder, though, what the conversation will be tomorrow about Purdue. Because I have UConn winning tonight 81-73. That's a score that I'll go with. 81-73 over Purdue. But for Purdue, we all know what happened to them a year ago. They lost to Tobin Anderson and Fairleigh Dickinson, who was a 16 seed, and Purdue was the number 1 seed. We know the last time that happened, which was the first time, you had UMBC get the best of Tony Bennett's squad in that 116 game, and then the following year, Virginia ended up going to the Final Four, ended up winning the national championship. I think Purdue, once they punched their ticket to the Final Four, they were able to exhale. I believe that they got universal praise. But if they would have lost to NC State, I do think we would have criticized Purdue today. And we would have said, coming off those games on Saturday night, yeah, Purdue got to a Final Four. It wasn't an embarrassing tournament performance, but you leave with a bitter taste in your mouth. I don't think, outside of just getting pants tonight and absolutely blown out, I don't think we look at this Purdue season tomorrow as unsuccessful and that Purdue didn't right the wrong from a year ago. This UConn team is just a different force. They're a different animal. And it's crazy how they were able to quickly retool with some of the pieces that they lost. And not only retool, but play at a better level. And play at a more dominant level. And I said this, I thought the best thing to happen to UConn was back in late February when they lost to Creighton. Because there were some early losses earlier on in the season where they lost 2 games. But picking up that third loss when they were on like a 16 or 17 game win streak, whatever it was great for Danny Hurley because it allowed them to kind of refocus and reset. And sometimes when you are that team and you're the team to beat and you have one of these just enormous win streaks, it's can you be victorious night in and night out. And sometimes when you lose a game, it takes some of the pressure off. And that's what I think happened to UConn. We know they won the Big East tournament this year, and they really haven't had, outside of the Alabama game, where it was a game for about 3 minutes, a game in this NCAA tournament where you seriously thought that they were going to lose. But here's what's on the line tonight. It's really two things. Number one, it's Danny Hurley officially becoming the face of the sport. You win back-to-back championships, and I like Danny Hurley, but he could be polarizing, right? He has an attitude, which is great, and I love Danny Hurley. But you could see like 50% of the people loving him, 50% of the people hating him. That's what you need for your face of the sport. You got to be a part of a huge program. We know UConn is a blue blood, and they win tonight. That's back-to-back national championships. So tonight, not only do you see the storyline of what I think is going to occur, that Danny Hurley is now officially the face of the sport for anyone that was doubting him, but then you also see the other side of it, either the storyline of one of the more dominant teams that we've ever seen, not the most dominant, but one of the more dominant teams that we've ever seen in college basketball, with how these games just have not been close, and everyone has expected them to win, and people are actually surprised if a team is ever within 5 of them for more than like a minute or two of the game. But if they end up losing, it is then the redemption story of Purdue. Those are the two storylines tonight. It's the dominance. It is the blue blood level that is UConn up against the revenge factor for Purdue to put the ultimate cherry on top of the revenge Sunday. I think Purdue comes up short tonight. I like UConn to win the game, and it's just amazing what Danny Hurley's been able to do. And it's kind of crazy because we all know what Calhoun did at UConn, and Kevin Ollie did win a championship, and then we know that was a very ugly divorce, and now Kevin Ollie is the interim head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. But to see Danny Hurley get to UConn, and he called his shot, he said, you better get us now, because when this thing is rolling, when this thing is humming, you're not going to be able to compete with us. And it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to follow through. And he did speak that into existence, where his team is on the verge of winning back-to-back national championships. And his family, I love his family. You know, the father, legendary high school basketball coach at St. Anthony's, and Bob Hurley Sr., I had a little bit of a relationship with when I was working in the Jersey area doing local radio years ago. And then you have, obviously, the brother who was a star at Duke, and we know what he's been able to do in college basketball. But to see what Danny's been able to do from coaching high school, then to Wagner, to Buffalo, right? All these stops that he's had, or excuse me, Rhode Island, not Buffalo. Bobby was at Buffalo. And to see those stops and now to be at UConn and to have UConn back rolling and UConn looking like the blue blood that they've been the last 25 to 30 years, it's just it's a wonderful story. It really is. So I like UConn tonight. Will anyone pick Purdue tonight? Stu, will you take Purdue?
I will not. I'll take UConn.
All righty. Samter, will you take Purdue?
I'm going to take Purdue.
Do you actually believe Purdue is going to win? Or are you just saying this to be different?
No, I have a feeling that we're going to see...
Skip Bayless Samter here.
No, I don't... The expectation for UConn is so big. Eventually, they have to, falter a little bit, and Zach Edey is good enough, and that Purdue team is going to be the best team I think that UConn's going to face all year. And I think when it comes down to the crunch time, not that UConn can't win close games, but I think that Purdue's been a little bit more battle-tested, and in those moments where they're going to have to bear down at the very end of the game, I think Purdue's going to come through. It's going to be close, but I think Purdue takes it.
More importantly, when I was down at the Shore a few weekends ago enjoying a few alcoholic beverages, I did place 2 future bets. And it was on Newton, and it was on Klingon to win the Final Four Outstanding Player at plus 1,000 and plus 1,100. So I'm rooting big for Kling Kong tonight, all right? And if it's not him, then I want it to be Tristan Newton as well. One of those two guys better win the most valuable player, but I think it's going to be Klingon. And, man, his athleticism is ridiculous. His defense, some of the blocks that he made the other night up against Alabama. But I really do think that this story about, if UConn gets into a close game, they just got into a close game for about a little bit with Alabama, and then boom, they ran them right off the court and didn't even make that a close game towards the end. Richard Ackerman, who has called college basketball games before as a play-by-play voice, can you make the argument for Purdue to win the game tonight, or do you fully expect it's going to be UConn?
I can make the argument. I
Okay.
don't think it'll be right, but I can make the argument.
Go ahead.
That Zach Edey gets Klingon into foul trouble and has his usual big game, as he has had tremendous tournaments, or tremendous tournament games this year, I should say. And the guards are hitting threes for Purdue, and UConn is struggling from three-point range. So that will be, I think they'd have to play a really good, near-perfect game, but it's possible. Does it happen? I don't think so.
And I think the player that's going to need to pop off for Purdue if they're going to win tonight, outside of Edey, is going to be Braden Smith.
Yep,
and
no question.
And I give credit to Seth Greenberg, who was all over that storyline with his health factor, too, heading into the NCAA tournament, why he was more Purdue than Purdue heading into March Madness. But tonight I'm not going with Purdue. I'm taking UConn. I just can't pick against them. And I said this, right, 2 months ago. Until someone really beats UConn when it matters, I'm going to fully expect them to repeat, and that's what I think happens tonight. All right, we'll come on back. We'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio with the news brief. But first up with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, let's get to the Ackman Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Purdue has been on a mission since getting upset in the first round of last year's tournament. The Boilermakers are one win away since following Virginia as the only top seed to lose in the opening round. Now they're hoping to follow Virginia as the only top seed to lose in the opening round and win it all. It certainly won't be easy, as the last team standing in the way is UConn. Head coach Matt Painter said his team cannot afford to turn the ball over tonight.
If you take bad shots and you turn the ball over, you're in deep trouble. It's a quick 2 or a quick 3 for them. They're probably the best I've seen in a long, long time, and being able to take your mistake and make you pay for it. At times when you make mistakes, other teams, they're probably going to make you pay, but it's just not automatic.
The Boilermakers are looking for their first championship ever. They haven't been in the title game since 1969, while the Huskies are looking for title number 6. While John Calipari's deal at Arkansas is reportedly being finalized, Aaron Bradshaw, the first Kentucky player to enter the transfer portal and recruit Carter Knox, the younger brother of former Kentucky star Kevin Knox, has decommitted as well. Baseball, the 8-2 Yankees will host the 1-9 Marlins, who are coming off their first win. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is Bart Winkler. I've got a new show weeknights. Join me for the Bart Winkler Show starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, only on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
All righty, let's start with Caitlin Clark as her illustrious college basketball career does come to a close. She did lose the national championship yesterday, but she looks back on another incredible season for the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Yeah, it's certainly been a special year, and to be honest, after last year, I was kind of like, well, how do we top doing what we did last year? And somehow, some way, every single person in our locker room believed, and to be honest, this year was probably more special than last year.
Yeah, last year was the appetizer. It was a really strong appetizer. Kind of said, okay, to your palate, this is pretty damn good. And then this year, you just got a sensational main course. Because there was an awareness, there was a lot of attention last year, but then it went through the roof this year with not only Caitlin Clark, but also the entirety of college basketball on the women's front, with the South Carolina story being undefeated, with LSU trying to go back-to-back with Angel Reese and Kim Mulkey. You had the emergence of, obviously, Juju Watkins going to USC, and then you had the return of Paige Beckers. So women's basketball is in a very healthy spot. You could argue that maybe this is lightning in the bottle, but I think because some of the stars that are there, there's going to be more attention being paid to women's basketball. I'm curious to see what the shift will be to the WNBA, but for someone like Caitlin Clark, she has this unique ability where she's the most powerful piece of this puzzle. She has the unique ability to make you want to watch a sport where, let's be real, most of us listening, most of us talking, have not watched a ton of in the past. And there's other great storylines that we've talked about before, but I've never watched more women's college basketball than these last 2 years, and it's solely because of Caitlin Clark.
I agree with you 100%. I probably will watch more of the WNBA because of her, or the Big Three, whichever way she decides to go.
She's not going to the Big Three.
I'm just saying, even if she did for 1 year for $5 million. Anyway,
she's
let's
not
get back
because
into
it
that.
would limit the growth of the game. That's a big, that's what Debbie Antonelli was kind of saying about Dawn Staley. Like, could she coach the men's game? Absolutely. But I do think it would stunt the growth of the women's game because of her power. But go ahead.
So here's a question, though, and this might be, a bad hot take or something, but was I the only one who kind of thought that Iowa lost that game because of Caitlin Clark?
Yes.
Yes.
She's by far and away their best player.
Yes. And she scored, 18 points in the first quarter.
Yes.
She was unstoppable.
She was gassed.
She was gassed. I get it, but, she needed to be
Superwoman.
She needed to be Superwoman. And maybe this is part of the GOAT conversation. Like, when Michael Jordan needs to be, Superman, he's Superman. When Kobe or LeBron, when they need to be the Superman, they are the Superman.
You do understand, though, Michael Jordan had Scottie Pippen. LeBron James had Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Caitlin Clark does not have another great teammate.
You're not wrong, but I thought in that championship game, her teammates played very well.
No.
There were a couple plays here or there where there wasn't, but they were making plays. And the plays that I was watching after that first quarter, the only people making plays, now Caitlin Clark was making great passes to a lot of her teammates.
And a lot of times the passes were dropped or fumbled out of bounds. That's a problem.
A lot of the passes were not fumbled out of bounds. A lot of the passes were difficult plays that they caught and they made, and great layups, nice little bump and run. There was a lot of plays.
Here's the disconnect on this.
That they were hitting.
Here's really the disconnect on this conversation.
Yeah.
Here's the disconnect on this conversation. The fact that she got that team to back-to-back championship games is remarkable.
I agree.
Because, if she was on UConn or if she was on South Carolina, both those games would never have been in striking distance. Iowa obviously beat UConn, and then Iowa had the lead at the end of the first quarter. They went back and forth for a little bit, and then you saw South Carolina pull away. So I don't think Caitlin Clark played poorly whatsoever. I thought she played a really good game. But when you have to be Superwoman and you have to hit shot after shot after shot, and you explode like that in the first quarter with 18 points, I don't think it's just natural for any human being to be able to withstand that with their legs. And she lost her legs. That's what it was. All right, let's go to Caitlin Clark on the growth of women's basketball.
Our games being nationally televised. I mean, we've played on Fox, NBC, CBS, ESPN. I mean, you just go down the list, and we've been on every national television, channel. And I think that's been one of the biggest things that has helped us. And I think no matter what sport it is, give them the same opportunities, believe in them the same, invest in them the same, and things are really going to thrive.
Also, you know what I found myself doing today? And it shows you the star power of Caitlin Clark. I was looking when her projected WNBA team was actually coming to New York. And there was a few dates. There was one that I was away. I was going to be in Florida. And there was another, I think it was in early June, where I was like, okay, I could go to a Liberty game. I would never consider going to a Liberty game before this. I've never would even think about going to a WNBA game. It's just not something I would do, but it just shows you how an individual can draw you to a sport. And when she's in the New York area, absolutely. As long as my schedule's free, I would love to go see Caitlin Clark play basketball because you just know that there's something so special and it's such a unique thing that she brings to a basketball court. Let's go to Lane Johnson. So Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey made an appearance at WrestleMania. Was that I think it was Rey Mysterio who was wrestling? When I was a kid, Rey Mysterio was one of my favorite wrestlers. I know I'm not ancient, but I was surprised that Rey Mysterio is still wrestling.
49 years old.
He's only 49? That's it?
He turns 50 in December.
All right. Well, here is Lane Johnson on the Pat McAfee show on his WrestleMania appearance.
Man, I lost probably 15 pounds, so trying to lose the fluff because we had to take our shirts off. It would look better.
So you lost 15 pounds for Mania?
Yeah. Well,
thank you.
Well,
you got Mania shape.
That's Mania, baby. Well, I knew about it for 2 weeks, so I had 2 weeks to just kind of cut the cobs out and lose the QB jacket.
What'd you do immediately afterwards?
Oh, It was, I had a night last night.
Yeah, I bet you could.
I'm back on track.
Nah, that's funny. And when you're that big, like Lane Johnson, you could fluctuate with your weight. You could lose like 10 or 15 pounds and then gain it back in probably like 2 steak dinners. And I know Lane likes to drink a beer or two, let's just say. Here's the thing. I saw Maggie and Perloff and EJ all attended WrestleMania as a show. I loved wrestling as a kid. Like, I remember seeing in a WrestleMania JBL up against John Cena, Batista, Rey Mysterio, The Undertaker, Randy Orton with the RKO. I liked wrestling as a kid. And if you're still a big wrestling fan, more power to you. You could operate your life how you want. I just personally can't see myself going to WrestleMania. I couldn't. As someone that's about to turn 30 years old, and once again, I'm not ancient, I couldn't see myself going to WrestleMania. And I didn't realize, and I'm not like criticizing anyone, I didn't realize how big of a wrestling fan EJ and Maggie both were. Like, you could tell Perloff really didn't care about the WrestleMania. But I guess it's now 2 nights. I guess that's a fun thing to go to because I saw a lot of people go there. Samter, Stu, would you have any interest of going to WrestleMania? Just wondering.
Yeah, I'd go for the experience. Same reason why I've gone to like NASCAR races or like a Dave Matthews concert. I don't care about Dave Matthews or NASCAR, but like the experience.
Into me,
yeah.
Into me.
Is that Francesco doing Dave Matthews? Something
Dave
like
Matthews.
That. The experience itself is probably worth it. So I would go not necessarily for the wrestling, but for the experience.
Okay. Stu?
Maybe if Hulk Hogan came back.
Now, Stu used to be like someone that hated soccer, that never had an interest in soccer, right, and then started watching it. And he was like, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. And now Stu is like, what the wrestling fan is and what WrestleMania is to them, that's Stu with every soccer match whenever they get on the pitch. Could you see yourself going to WrestleMania?
I could not. I probably wouldn't, but like you just said, maybe that could change, but I don't see it.
I was surprised how many people I know how popular WrestleMania is, but I was surprised how many people I knew that I would never think are still wrestling fans that were going there. So let's go to Merrill Hodge. We know he's been critical of Drake May. He was on WCCO with Henry Lake, and he ripped Drake May.
Drake May will get you fired. Drake May's the kind of player that gets you fired. And especially you draft him in the top 5, in the top 3, he's going to get you fired. Malik Willis might be the only guy I could think of that is as erratic as Drake May. It is. I studied him for 2 years, and I am telling you, I have yet to find. Actually, I would say probably his best game. I watched every one of his games last year. It's probably the Pitt game, and that was an average football game. His last game, the NC State game, was the most embarrassing display I'd ever seen from a guy who's supposed to be an elite franchise quarterback. When you talk about accuracy, it is erratic everywhere.
I'm actually concerned because a lot of people think Jaden Daniels is going to be the 2nd overall pick. A lot of people think my team's going to take Drake May at 3. And I know people could say, oh, it's Merrill Hodge. What does Merrill Hodge know? Just some old head talking into a microphone. Merrill Hodge nailed that Johnny Manziel wasn't going to be good. He also nailed that Jadeveon Clowney wasn't going to be worth the number 1 overall pick. There have been moments, not that he bats 1,000, but there have been moments where Merrill Hodge has been in the minority talking about a player, and he ends up being spot on. I think I'm at the point, Samter, we're at 3, even though I would hate this. Jaden Daniels off the board. I think I want the Patriots to call up the Vikings or call up the Raiders or call up one of these teams that are desperate for a quarterback and just get a ton of picks. 3 first-round picks. I want Elliott Wolf to be on the receiving end of like Oprah Winfrey during Christmas time where she's like, you get this, you get a first-round pick, you get a first-round pick, you get a first-round pick. That's what I think I want to have happen here.
I mean, there's all this talk about the Vikings moving up to 4 with the Cardinals. If they have to be forced to take J.J. McCarthy and they can move up to 3 and get a guy that they want even more if it's Drake May. I mean, if I'm the Vikings, why not move up to 3 if I have to move up to 4 anyway?
Yeah, well, we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. Alrighty, that is a news brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Add Merrill Hodge to the Drake May hater list. And you know what? I value Merrill Hodge's opinion on this matter. Oh, boy. From now until the next 3 weeks, when we get to that NFL draft, I just think I'm going to be in my brain's going to be in like a mental pretzel. Because one day I wake up, I'm like, all right, take a quarterback. The next day I'm like, trade back. Then it's like, all right, draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Ugh. This is going to put a number on your boy. It's going to do a number on your boy. I don't know how you guys that have bad football teams, they do this in the draft each and every year, Stu and Samter.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
National Championship Monday, rocking and rolling. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We had the Women's National Championship game yesterday. The numbers are out. Our buddy Ryan Glasspiegel passing along this information. It's the most watched women's college basketball game on record since 1992, an average of 18.7 million viewers. Viewership was up 89%. And 285% from the two most recent Women's National Championship games. The viewership peaked at 24 million viewers. It's the most watched basketball game, men's or women's, college or pro, since 2019. And excluding football and Olympics, it's the most watched sporting event since 2019. And Ryan Glasspiegel did say that according to the NBA, this would be the most watched NBA Finals game since Cavs Warriors Game 5 in 2017. So just behemoth numbers that Caitlin Clark, Iowa, Dawn Staley, South Carolina did bring to a TV set yesterday on ABC and ESPN. But it doesn't just stop there. We have the men's national championship game tonight between the UConn Huskies and Purdue. You have a chance for redemption for the Purdue Boilermakers as they try to do what Virginia did after they did lose to UMBC in a 116. And we did know the following year Virginia was able to win it all. Purdue tries to do that tonight. And UConn right on the cusp of going back-to-back as national champions, where Dan Hurley would then become the face of the sport. And not only that, you also do have the biggest news right now, which is the fact that you did get to see John Calipari kind of in the middle of the night, it become official, or late last night, it become official with the reporting that he's going to leave Kentucky and he's going to wind up at Arkansas with Pig Suey. So that's a major, major movement in the SEC, where you have Coach Cal, where a lot of us thought it was going to come to an end, but then the buyout of nearly $34 million, okay, him and the AD say that they're both going to be back and they're going to make this work and they're going to try to bring another championship to Big Blue Nation. And that was about 10 days ago. And you had some dominoes fall. Andy Enfield go to SMU, which opened up USC. Then Eric Musselman, the Muss Bus, goes from Arkansas to USC. Arkansas is then open. And then through the power of chicken, Walmart, and the Dallas Cowboys with Jerry Jones, with all the booster background between those three people and the Tyson family, the co-owners of the Broncos, and then the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, you saw that there were enough resources to get Coach Cal to say, okay, I don't think there's going to be a great situation where I'm going to be able to rectify it here at Kentucky. I don't think that this is going to work in the long term and moving forward, even though it was very successful for them. So he did go to Arkansas, and now Kentucky is open. And when Kentucky is open, it's a who's on who's going to be made available. And you'll have the rumors of Jay Wright. I don't think Jay Wright's going to take that job whatsoever. I'm sure that you will have Kentucky place a call to Danny Hurley after tonight. I don't think Danny Hurley is going to take it. You'll have the speculation of people of the past and Billy Donovan and Rick Pitino with Kentucky roots, obviously. And then you'll get to some other current coaches as well. When you look at the list of Nate Oates, who's at Alabama, Scott Drew, who is at Baylor, maybe even Bruce Pearl. I've seen he's been mentioned at Auburn. So there will be some names that are obviously going to be mentioned, and we'll probably see in the next week or two who's going to be the next head basketball coach at Kentucky. But now joining us is a former college basketball coach at Memphis and Georgia Tech. He knows John Calipari very well, and that's Josh Pastner, here to talk about all the craziness that's going on in the college basketball game in both the men's and women's side with us right now. Coach, always great to have you on. Thanks so much for doing this. How you been?
Zach, thanks for having me on. It took a little bit with the connection. I wonder if it was the solar eclipse have just screwed up the connection with the Wi-Fi around the country. What? Or it could have been Calipari going to Arkansas and jammed up all the phone lines here in the Southeast, of what's going on in the world of college hoops. Only John Calipari, I love him dearly, can he trump the national championship game between UConn and Purdue. There's only one guy that can have a bigger story than that game on the day of the championship game, and that's John Calipari.
And I like John Calipari a lot, but I got to clown him a little bit because I saw he made his first public comments were basically a no comment, and he has a dog in a stroller. Come on, coach. Get the dog on the leash and walk the dog. You don't need to put a dog in a stroller. I thought that was weak of Coach Cal.
I think he did that intentionally. I think he was maybe trolling a little bit. I don't know. I mean, look, I would think there'd be some shock if he was not going to Arkansas at this point. I think all reports are that he's going there, and I think he's going to do extremely, extremely well. Let me say two things on this, Zach. One, Arkansas is a big-time gig, big-time job. It's a huge arena. When you cross the state line and you go into Arkansas, everyone's about Razorback Nation there. Everybody's about that school is the state school in a sense. I mean, that is the pro team, and it's a 20,000 seat arena. When that thing gets going and is loud, I mean, it's as rocking as anywhere there is in the country. And I think resources wise, they have as many billionaires as any other program. They're going to give them the resources to win and get the very, very best players in the country, probably even at a higher level than he was maybe just recently getting at Kentucky with the portal where, let's call it like it is, Zach. It's not NIL, it's pay to play. You're paying guys to play. So you've got to have a high salary cap to be able to do that, which is legal. It's legal now, basically. So he'll have that. And look, whoever replaces him at Kentucky, it's not going to be easy. I mean, look, that's a monster job as well. But, Zach, look at his success there at Kentucky. Yes, they maybe haven't got to the second week in the last couple years, but, man, he's had a lot of wins, had a lot of pro players, a lot of, SEC regular season and tournament championships. But so it's whoever follows John Calipari, it's not going to be easy to do that there at Kentucky either.
I think this is a win-win all around. It's rare that you have win-wins here, but for Arkansas, you get a huge name and a behemoth of a name in John Calipari. And then for Kentucky, I just never thought that this was going to have a good ending because where there's smoke, there's obviously a fire. People started to turn on him. The lack of tournament success the last 3 or 4 seasons. I just thought that when the buyout started to go down a little bit, then they would have moved on. So I think that this lights a little fire under the tummy of Calipari, and now you could start to build the next championship culture at Kentucky and try to get them closer to win another national championship again.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're probably right. I mean, going to Arkansas is going to rejuvenate Coach Calipari. He's going to be tremendous there. He's going to win big. Like I said, they've got all the resources to win big, especially in today's climate. I mean, so much of it's about technically the NIL or what monies you can have to be able to pay guys and pay the players and to have them come to your school or to stay at your school. And so he'll have those resources. They've obviously got a great home arena and a home court advantage when that place is rocking. He'll be the biggest thing in the state of Arkansas there athletically. There's no doubt about that. And for Kentucky, look, I mean, I know there's been a lot of names being thrown around. I don't know who they're going to hire. Obviously, I've got no intel on that. But I know the names of Danny Hurley, Jay Wright, Billy Donovan. Look, I mean, is Danny Hurley really going to leave UConn? I mean, if he wins tonight, which there's a good chance, I mean, the guy's on his way to the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? I mean, he's probably, regardless of what happens tonight, I mean, he's got the thing rolling at UConn. Jay Wright and Billy Donovan, obviously elite coaches in their own right, big time. But look, they're both in their 60s. And I don't know if I'm Kentucky, am I trying to hire someone to be there for the next 8 to 12 years in a sense, and get somebody, so that would be the thing of who do they go? Yes, I think they're going to make calls for the Danny Hurleys, for the Jay Wrights, for the Billy Donovans. I don't see any of those three taking it. And so then you're going into that next crew, and that next crew is probably younger than those guys other than Danny Hurley, to say, okay, you can be our coach here for the next, this is going to be an 8 to 12 year deal that you're trying in a way that for the long term to, because look, John Calipari was just there for 15 years, which is a long time at Kentucky when you consider the intensity and the pressure of that job.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Jay Wright is going to consider it. I do not think Danny Hurley is going to consider it. I'm kind of 50-50 on if Billy Donovan will consider it. But let's just say you're right. All three of those guys say no. Those are the obvious names. I then think you get into that conversation of Scott Drew and then Nate Oates. And to me, the realistic hires, and I think one of these three need to get the job, is either Billy Donovan, which we talked about, Nate Oates, or Scott Drew. I think one of those three guys have to be the next head coach of Kentucky, Josh Pastner.
If I was a betting person, I would put all odds on Scott Drew as the next coach at Kentucky, if Scott Drew wants to take it. I think Kentucky's going to go after Scott Drew. I mean, after the Danny Hurleys and the Jay Wrights and assuming Billy Donovan, those three say no, I think the next person in line is going to be Scott Drew. Now, whether Scott takes it, who knows? I mean, he's been offered a lot of jobs before at Baylor. He's got a great thing at Baylor. They can win at a very high level, and he's eventually going to have his name on the court, a statue built of him. It's the greatest rebuild job in the history of any sport ever. It's not just college basketball, of any sport when you think about it. So I just think it's one of those things where in the end it's whether he takes it or not. Look, he had a chance to go to Louisville, and he said no. So he every year he gets offered jobs. Any elite job that's open, he gets offered. It's just whether he's going to take it, if he's going to leave or not. And here's what I would say, Zach. I don't know how you feel about this. You've covered sports for a long time. It's different now these days. When I say what's different, meaning the 10 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, kids would be, doing everything to go to a Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina. Things have changed in this day and age because of the NIL/pay to play. Everyone's on television. You can go to the NBA from any school, from any conference. You can go to the Final Four and win a championship from any league. And you can get a lot of money from anywhere you want to go. It's based on now in this climate, it's really based on how financially set up the boosters are.
Yeah.
And according to the program. So maybe he looks at that and says, is it the same allure as it's been in the past? And I just think the game has changed now with the so-called blue bloods. I mean, Zach, I would ask you, is there a real difference between, yes, traditionally Baylor and Kentucky? Yes, there's tradition, but is there a difference if Baylor has a $5 million NIL, I'm just making this up, and Kentucky has $3 million? You have a better chance of winning than a Baylor because you can pay guys more. And until that's regulated, that's the reality of the deal. It's more about what school has the most money in the NIL.
I would have to imagine that Kentucky, like if there's a job for Scott Drew to leave, like if he doesn't leave, if he gets offered this job and he doesn't leave for this job, I think we could stop. We'll stop ever throwing Scott Drew's name in a job, and he's not going to leave.
Totally agree, Zach. They're 1,000%. Either he's leaving for Kentucky or he's not leaving Baylor ever.
And then also the pressure part of this too. Like, Scott Drew has won a championship at Baylor. This guy's never in danger of being on the hot seat. You go to Kentucky, you don't win a championship in the first 3 years, and that may be benevolent. You go from being the talk of the sport to now potentially getting run out at Kentucky. So I wonder, the pressure part to me is the most fascinating part about this, and if he would want to embrace that.
That's exactly right. It's not, he hasn't made in the shade at Baylor. There's no doubt about it. And, look, how about, Baylor's a private school. Kentucky's a public school. People, maybe the casual fan doesn't understand that, but there's more things that you can, that's maybe not so scrutinized when you're in a private school because of Freedom of Information Act, that there's things that are protected. Not there's anything wrong or anyone doing anything wrong. It's just maybe not everyone's in your business, if that makes sense. Whereas when you're in a public school, anyone can get any email, any text message. They can't do that at a private school. Secondly, think about this. I mean, when you're at Kentucky, you have 20 to 25, maybe 30 recruiting people following every move you make, who you're recruiting. If you don't get the kid, there's really 2 seasons at Kentucky, because if you don't get the prospect, then they're on you about that. And the 2 seasons are during the regular season and recruiting season. Whereas Baylor, they might not have one recruiting, kind of internet person following Baylor recruiting. And so you can be, underneath that radar as well too. And I can assure you, and I'm just giving you the 2 ends of the spectrum, Zach, for your listeners. I can assure you that Scott Drew's making think about it. I mean, he's what, 6-7 million he's making at Baylor. And again, you're in the state of Texas. There's no state income tax, so I'm just throwing out different things that Scott Drew's probably thinking about before he makes the decision, because it's not a slam dunk that he's just 100% going, but you are 100% right. If he says no to this, let's stop talking about the Scott Drew to any other school. He will then officially retire at Baylor.
Will Coach Cal be the same coach that he's been at Kentucky, at Arkansas? Or do you think he's going to alter some things?
No, I mean, I think it's going to rejuvenate him. I think it's going to give him a fresh of breath, just kind of a breath of fresh air, starting over. I think he's going to, anyone that knows Calipari, he's got tremendous energy for his age. I mean, his mind is going at, 100 miles an hour all times. He's a tremendous coach. He's an incredible recruiter. He's just one of those guys that whether he was going to take the Kentucky job, the Memphis job, the UMass job, the Arkansas job, or some small school, a small Division I, he's going to make it into a winner. And I really mean that. So what he does to change, he's going to recruit the best players. Look, Zach, let's think about this Oakland game, because the reason we're in this discussion is because of what happened against Oakland. The one kid made 10 threes, and a couple of some of those shots, Zach, were incredible threes. If he misses 2 of them, you and I aren't talking about this right now.
Yeah, if they could pass the basketball or not get stuffed at the rim too, with how many missed layups as well. You're not wrong on that.
So I don't, because how many, people are talking about he needs to change, but I'm also thinking about how many times during the season were people talking about Kentucky was good enough to win the championship. Think who they beat. They beat guys. They beat Tennessee. They went into different arenas and beat teams on the road. I just think that.
But that's why he needed to go, Josh. That's why he needed to go, because he had another year or 2. So if everyone's saying, okay, get away from one and done, that means you need to develop guys for 3 or 4 years. He didn't have 3 or 4 years. So I think he realized if the right job with the resources, like with the chicken, the Walmart, and, the Cowboys come calling, right, with the Razorbacks, with all the boosters that are associated with those 3, this was the right job for him to leave where it's big enough for him. And he kind of realized, I think, with the omission of taking the Arkansas job, that this wasn't going to end properly at Kentucky.
Yeah. And you're right. But my point is just how fine of a line it is.
Yeah.
When they say about making changes, I mean, literally 2 weeks prior, people are talking about Kentucky as everyone's picking Kentucky to go to the Final Four and possibly win the
against
championship.
UConn.
So that's just kind of one of the things. But I'm telling you, this is the job that he actually has maybe more resources. Again, it's not maybe the same fanfare nationally.
Sure.
But he has probably more resources to be able to succeed even at a higher level than Kentucky, just based on what you said on the amount of billionaires, not millionaires, billionaires that are connected to the Arkansas Razorbacks.
What kind of game do you think we'll get tonight between UConn and Purdue?
I think it all comes down to Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith for Purdue. If those guys play like they did on Saturday versus NC State, UConn's winning double digits. But if those 2 guys play at a high level, I think it can be a real close game and it can be a toss-up. But based on the way NC State pressured those guards on Saturday and Braden Smith struggled, the way that the amount of turnovers that Purdue had for the total of the game, I didn't think Fletcher Lawyer struggled scoring at the rim. It's going to come down to those 2 guys. And if I'm Danny Hurley and staff watching that film, I'm pressuring the heck out of those 2 guys. And and making them have to, to sweat it out. And if they struggle against the pressure, it's going to be a double-digit win for UConn. I will say this is the first time in 2 years in the tournament that UConn will have played a 1 or a 2 seed, and so they'll be tested. But I just think the guard play for UConn is going to be the whole deal. And so for Purdue to win, it's not about Zach Edey, it's not about Lance Jones. It's strictly about Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. You and I can talk tomorrow morning, Zach. If those 2 guards play really, really well, Purdue has a great shot at winning the national championship. But if one of those 2 guys have a bad night or both of them aren't playing up to par, it's going to be a double-digit win for UConn.
Do you think Scott Drew ends up taking the job?
I think Scott Drew is going to be the next coach at Kentucky.
Got it. Good deal. Josh Pastor, appreciate it.
I just think, Zach, when you're in the profession like myself, when you get an offer like a Kentucky job like that, I think it's just probably too hard to say no to, based on to have a shot to coach at one of those type of schools. If you get what I'm saying, that's sort of the pinnacle point, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely does. Josh, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Zach. Thank you for having me.
There you go. Coach Josh Pastor joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I'm with him. I think it's going to be Scott Drew be the next head coach of the Kentucky Wildcats. Take a timeout. Come on back after these short messages.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, National Championship Monday here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will get back to the National Championship game coming up in about 10 minutes or so from now. I want to squeeze in one football thing. So we are waiting on the NFL draft. It's crazy that we are a few weeks away with the draft coming your way on the first round coverage on April 25th. And from now until then, my sanity, I think, will be non-existent, if I'm just being real with you. Like, Stu and Samter, I don't know how you guys do this. I know Samter pretends to be a Chiefs fan, but for 30 years, 35 years, Samter was a massive Jets fan. Stu is still a long-suffering Raiders fan. I just don't know how you guys do this, where for 20 years I was in the penthouse, I was in I was royalty. I was football royalty. It was wonderful. Never had any concerns about the quarterback position. And now it's okay, Mac Jones. We already had the Mac Jones era, and it was an error. And then now it's like, okay, you're at 3. And I tried to warn all my fellow Patriot fans that were like, oh, yeah, we beat the Steelers. Oh, we beat the Broncos. Now it's going to cost us Jaden Daniels, and we're stuck in getting the 3rd option in the draft. And honestly, none of us know anything really about this scouting process, because how many times someone's supposed to be the guy, and both you guys know this very well, from Jamarcus Russell for Stu and for Samter, the list is too long to even probably discuss, where there's supposed to be a guy that's going to be the guy, and then it's like the guy that ends up going 3rd and 4th in the draft. That's better. Like, you look back at the Josh Allen draft class, you had the number 1 pick be Baker Mayfield, who's been fine, then Sam Darnold, then you had Josh Allen, then Josh Rosen, and then Lamar Jackson. Like, the 3rd and the 5th quarterback in that first round ended up being not only the 2 best quarterbacks from the draft class, but both being elite quarterbacks in the NFL. So from now until the next 3 weeks, today I'm in the mindset of just trade the pick. But then there's also part of me that goes, since I've been so anti-Drake May, that since I've been so against him, that probably means that he'll end up being a good pro. But I just don't think the Patriots have the right environment right now, where if you have someone that's not NFL ready, and Drake May is supposedly not ready to play this year, then you have to sit him. Because there's sometimes you could throw someone to the Wolves a little bit earlier than expected, but you need to have, like in Minnesota, a Justin Jefferson and a Jordan Addison. The Patriots have, at wide receiver, Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne, and you have Ramondre Stevenson coming off an injury. At least you have Hunter Henry. All right? Like, Hunter Henry is the prized possession of this offense right now. That's a problem. So you guys, I think you could see, here's the thing, though. I don't think you're going to have sympathy for me in the next 3 weeks. I think Stu's looking at it, and Stu's going to be like, welcome to my world. You have all those championships. Screw off. And then Samter, I think, is going to just poke the bear, and he's going to enjoy seeing me toss and turn about what my team's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the world's smallest violin. Like, oh, we were winning so many championships. I'm not used to having like a top 3 pick. Suck it up. This is my life. Learn. Deal.
I want to be the Packers. Favre to Rodgers to
I wish you
Love.
could hear an eye roll. I wish you can hear my eyes just falling into the back of my head.
We're understanding of everyone now in society. I think people should be understanding of me. All right? I was a football winner. Now I'm a football loser.
Certainly are a loser.
All right? Be understanding. I'm even trying to act like a loser wearing this jet green today. All right? I'm trying to feel like what it's like to be a loser, so hopefully I get the bad juju out of the world and my football team can go back to winning. But anyway, I want to get into this conversation because I'll relate it to the Minnesota Vikings. Let's first hear from former Vikings general manager Rick Spielman. He was on with the First Pick podcast on CBS on the Minnesota Vikings and J.J. McCarthy and what he's hearing.
When Minnesota went and traded to get that second first-round pick, they're setting themselves up to go get a quarterback. They don't have a choice. So hopefully Arizona is the team, and it sounds like it could be J.J. McCarthy. I heard a lot of things that Minnesota thought he had an excellent pro day up there. It fits exactly what Kevin O'Connell wants to do from an offensive standpoint. But they're not going to get it for just the first 2-round picks. They're going to have to throw in their first-round pick in 2025, plus some more draft capital to do what they have to do to go up and get it. So I think he's going to be a good pro, but I think they're going to overpay if they have to go up and get him.
So the way I ranked these 5 quarterbacks that are expected to go in the first round was Caleb Williams 1, Jaden Daniels 2, Drake May 3, Michael Penix Jr. 4, and then J.J. McCarthy 5. If the decision, let's just say, is between either you trade up for J.J. McCarthy or Drake May, because those are the 2 names that I think we've heard linked to most to the Minnesota Vikings. And it was intriguing that Rick Spielman said that he's heard the name's been J.J. McCarthy. But so many other people say because of the new quarterback coach, former NFL quarterback Josh McCown being there, and Josh McCown coached Drake May once, that a lot of people thought it was going to be Drake May when they picked up that second first-round pick in the trade from the Texans a few weeks back. So even though I have Drake May rated higher than J.J. McCarthy, for the Minnesota Vikings, I think J.J. McCarthy would be a better fit than Drake May. The Vikings are in an NFC that's open. The Vikings have 2 stud wide receivers right now in Justin Jefferson, who's a top 2 wide receiver in the sport, and then Jordan Addison, who had a very strong rookie season. And that's a really good 1-2 punch. You have TJ Hawkinson as well at the tight end spot. You just brought in Aaron Jones. Minnesota is ready to make a run for it now, with a defense that also improved big time last year under new defensive coordinator, former NFL head coach in Brian Flores. So I think J.J. McCarthy needs the star wide receivers to get the most out of him. And I look at the decision the Vikings made. Well, they have 2 star wide receivers. And I believe that J.J. McCarthy can be NFL ready. And I think that when I look at J.J. McCarthy, the first thing I say is professional. And I believe that he's NFL ready. Where for Drake May, you even heard Dan Orlovsky say that he wouldn't play him in his first year. So when you look at the fit, and that's a big part about it, it's can this quarterback fit with what you do? I don't know what to expect out of Drake May from what everyone says in year 1, because a lot of people don't expect him to play in year 1. And if you're trading up all those first-round draft picks to go get a quarterback at 3, I don't think throwing Sam Darnold out there is really going to be something that's going to last that long. You know, look at the Steelers. They had Kenny Pickett, who they didn't have to trade up to get. They got him at 20. And when you have a quarterback that's underwhelming like Mitch Trubisky in front of him, and Sam Darnold's been underwhelming, and he's been disappointing, and he's been a bust, those guys can't hold off the fans for that long. And then you're going to play someone sooner than you anticipate. So if the Vikings are trading up and they can't get Caleb Williams, they can't get Jaden Daniels, and let's just say the decision's between Drake May or J.J. McCarthy, because you can make a case for Michael Penix Jr., how he would fit in there. But if that's what the decision is, I actually think the Vikings would be better off taking McCarthy than it would be Drake May, because my fear is they play Drake May too early, and then you could potentially ruin him. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll come on back. It is a Monday. We'll do a little onside, offside. As Santer's got some questions, I'll give you some answers. And first up, let's get the latest CBS Sports Radio update in, though, with the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the men's title is just a couple of hours away. The women's title broke a record. It certainly was a hit, drawing over 18 million viewers, 18.7 to be exact, making it the most watched college basketball game, men's or women's, in over 5 years. Of course, UConn and Purdue, the two number 1 seeds, meet shortly for the title. The Boilermakers are looking to cap the redemption tour with their first ever championship, while the Huskies are looking to become the first team since Florida 17 years ago to repeat as champs. Both teams feature top big men, with Player of the Year Zach Edey for Purdue and expected lottery pick Donovan Clingan for UConn. Head coach Dan Hurley said the similarities run deep between the two teams.
In a lot of ways, we mirror each other. You know, they're 2 or 3 in offense in the country, and they're 12th in defense. There's just not a lot of holes in either team. It's NBA-level talent up and down each roster, and teams that are just well-rounded without a lot of vulnerabilities.
And while John Calipari's deal at Arkansas is reportedly being finalized today, Aaron Bradshaw, the first Kentucky player to enter the transfer portal, and recruit Carter Knox is decommitted. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is JR. Let's hang out weeknights here on CBS Sports Radio for my show, the JR Sport Brief, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day, and it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Alex in Alabama says, Zach, is the national championship game starting at 9:20 p.m. Eastern time tonight too late for you on the East Coast? What a question. You could submit a question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio, at Zach Gelb, using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Sing it with me. O'Reilly Auto Parts. No, it isn't. So, since I do a national show, I think about more than just the East Coast. Like, if I was doing local East Coast radio, yeah, I'd probably be lazy and go, 9:20 p.m. Eastern for a national championship game? Way too late. Disgraceful. But on the West Coast, that's a 6:20 p.m. Pacific start time. So I think about both coasts. And it's more than just us. Here's what I asked for. And it's weird. I'm not doing a Zach Gelb Show PSA because it's not Thursday. But all I ask for in a national championship game is a good game. That's all I want. So I don't care if you play the game at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, if you play the game at 6 p.m. Eastern, or if you play the game at 9:20 p.m. Eastern. Just give me a good game. And if you give me a good game, I won't bitch about the start time. So I don't have a problem staying up for it. I know some people, right, if you have kids, a little bit difficult. If you have younger children, if you got to get up early for work, yeah, it could be difficult. So I understand it. But the question was, is it too late for me? No, it's not. Because I don't have to get into the office. I like to get into the office no later than 2 p.m. Eastern. I try to get in here at like 1 or 1:30 at the absolute latest. But technically, I just need to be in here by 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern. When that intro music hits and they say, here's Zach Gelb, I just need to be having my tuchus sat in this chair. That's it. So if it runs a little late tonight, and if this game goes into a few overtimes, it doesn't end till God knows what hour, that's fine by me because I'll be able to sleep in the morning. Be able to sleep until 12 p.m., 1 p.m. if I need to. Last night, I went to bed rather late, and this morning I woke up at 7 a.m. Eastern, and I looked at my phone, and I said, that's way too late. Went back to bed, and then I rolled back over, and it was 10 a.m. Eastern. Now, that's a good morning. Still able to get up after 10, relax until 10:30, go to the gym by 10:35, down in my the second floor of my building, work out for an hour, shower, shave, do all that stuff, and then make your way into work. I had a very good Monday morning. Very good Monday morning. So I'm fine with this game going late tonight and doing the same thing all over again tomorrow. Anyway, without further ado, I'm not talking about Freddie Adu. It's time for a little onside, offside. Stu, hit it.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb on CBS Sports Radio.
Boom, boom, boom. All righty, what do we got cooking today, Samter?
All right, well, this was very weird. Malik Neighbor is expected to be one of the top 2 receivers off the board, along with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Roma Dunze. However, our buddy Tony Pauline has reported that off-field questions are swirling about Neighbors, saying that he's considered, quote, high maintenance and, quote, may struggle in a big city. So onside, offside, you buy these rumors about Neighbors?
I'm saying offside. I don't buy anything this time of the year, especially when we get 3 weeks out from the draft. I think information like that is put out there to maybe get some other teams apprehensive about taking that player so they could fall. I think this is bull junk season, where a lot of these rumors and a lot of these reports are bull junk, and people just use guys like Tony Pauline. And nothing against Tony Pauline. We've had him on the show before. When he came on, though, and he questioned, or he's been told that people should question Michael Penix Jr.'s work ethic, and I just questioned him and said, well, everything you heard about Michael Penix Jr. is how great of a work ethic he's had. So how are you hearing that? And, how much he worked hard, come back from those injuries. He's like, oh, well, maybe if he worked harder, he wouldn't have had the injuries. Like, that never made any sense to me when Pauline said that to us. And now you have Tony Pauline just getting used again by someone that's trying to get Malik Neighbor's draft stock to fall down. I've said this, and I've been on an island. Not Marvin Harrison Jr., like he's the best wide receiver in this draft class, but I've had Roma Dunze ranked in front of Malik Neighbors, and a lot of people feel like Malik Neighbors should be 2, if not 1. But that's the other part that doesn't make sense about this. Some people 2 weeks ago said Malik Neighbors go in front of Marvin Harrison Jr., and now people are concerned that he's high maintenance and he may struggle in a big city. Give me a break. Just seriously, give me a break. This is an easy offside.
Offside.
Number 2.
Well, the Cowboys already have questions about the future of Dak, and now reports say All-Pro wideout CeeDee Lamb is unlikely to participate in voluntary workouts this offseason and could even be a training camp holdout as he looks for a new deal. So onside, offside, the Cowboys need to give CeeDee Lamb a new deal before the season starts.
I'm going to say offside, and CeeDee Lamb a few moments ago did an interview with TMZ Sports, and he confirmed that he'll be in Dallas for the 2024 season, despite rumors of him potentially holding out. He said, yeah, I'll be in Dallas. So it doesn't mean that there still won't be a holdout or anything like that, but he'll be on the field come week 1. So I think they should give him a new deal, but the question is, the Cowboys need to give CeeDee Lamb a new deal before the season starts? I don't think they need to, so I will go offside on that.
Offside. Now, the Milwaukee Bucks have lost 4 straight and are just a game ahead of the Knicks and Magic for the number 2 seed in the East, which seemed locked up a few weeks ago, really. Now, Doc Rivers is just 15-17 since taking over for Adrian Griffin, who was fired after a 30-13 start. So onside, offside, the Bucks are still the second best team in the East.
Yeah, onsides, because who else scares you? Like, the Magic and Knicks are having really good regular seasons. I don't think they're going to have great postseasons. Like, the Bucks' regular season doesn't mean much to them. The Cavs, they've now lost 3 in a row. The Sixers, I know they get Embiid back and they're on a win streak, but I don't trust Embiid to stay healthy. Miami, they're always a team that you don't want to face, but I think the Bucks are a better team, even though Miami beat the Bucks last year. I think for Milwaukee, you're just hoping come playoff time, you're going to be able to pick it up, and you'll get the excellence of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Dame Lillard. the Celtics are by far and away the preeminent team in the East. We know that. That's why they have a 15-game lead on the Bucks right now. We're in at 2. But I just don't seriously look at any of those other teams outside of maybe Miami because they've done it before where I believe, okay, they're going to be better than the Bucks. So I'm still saying the Bucks are the second best team in the East. That's an onside.
Now, UConn looks to become the first repeat NCAA champ since Florida nearly 20 years ago.
With Billy Donovan.
Yeah, the Huskies, we'll get to Billy Donovan in just a second. The Huskies have won every game
That's
of the
called
tournament.
The tease in the radio business, my friends.
There you go. By an average of 25 points and are favored by 6.5 over Purdue tonight. Onside, offside, UConn will cover that 6.5 point spread.
UConn 81, Purdue 73. Donovan Clingan wins the Final Four most valuable player. And I cash in some money in a plus $1,000 ticket that I got the first weekend of the tournament. Or plus 1,000 odds, I should say. If I threw $1,000 on this, I may not even show up into work tomorrow, if I'm being honest. But I do think UConn is going to cover the 6.5 point spread. And that game being a little bit closer and tight for a little bit up against Alabama, that eliminates the fear of what happens if UConn is in a close game, because it got to a close game and then they said, Alabama, checkmate, good night. So, yes, UConn will cover the 6.5 point spread onside.
Now, speaking of Billy Donovan, he's the last coach, as we said, to repeat as NCAA champ when he coached Florida. Now the Bulls coach, Donovan served as an assistant at Kentucky in the early 90s. Onside, offside, Donovan should leave the NBA for Kentucky.
If I was him, I would leave the NBA for Kentucky. I am 50-50 if he will. Right now, I lean more no than yes. And remember, he hasn't coached in college since 2015. But it's like Jim Harbaugh going back to the NFL. Even if you haven't done something for a while, you're still coaching basketball. For Harbaugh, he's still coaching football, and we know what he's done. I don't think Billy Donovan would have any problems in college in the year of 2024. But I keep on believing that Scott Drew is going to be the next head coach of the Kentucky Wildcats. But the question was, Donovan should leave the NBA for Kentucky? Yeah, I would. This is not the Bulls of the 90s, all right? This is not a prestigious job right now in the year of 2024. You've been in the NBA for a while. You've been successful in some regard in the NBA with the Thunder and the Bulls. I would leave to go back to Kentucky. That is the prime real estate job. You are a legendary college coach. I go win a national championship at Kentucky because you're not going to win one. You're not going to win a world championship in the NBA with Billy Donovan as your coach. So I would leave for Kentucky if I was Billy Donovan. I don't think he will, but to answer your question, it's an onside.
All right, now Astros pitcher Ronel Blanco threw the season's first no-hitter last week and came close to back-to-back no-nos, going 6 2/3 hitless innings yesterday. As we know, the only pitcher with back-to-back no-nos is Johnny Vandermeer back in 1938. If you didn't know that, then you're not a baseball fan.
Well, that's not true.
Well,
Stu, did you know that? You're a huge baseball fan.
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, onside,
I don't believe Stu there. Gave me a kind of a look. He's like,
It's one of the few times you ever get to say Johnny Vandermeer's name, so you might as well know it. Now, onside,
I remember
offside,
him well back in my day.
We will never see another pitcher throw back-to-back no-hitters.
I'm going to say onside. I know you should never say never, but I'm going to say never here because I think the analytics and the, you know what's going to happen? Like this guy, Blanco, threw a no-hitter on it was like 101 pitches or something like that, I forget. You always then know that a guy's going to do it like 96 pitches, and the second start will be at like 100-something pitches, and then they'll take him out. I just think it's too difficult, and they have such a quick hook now that I don't think it's ever going to happen. So I will go, when you ask me, we will never see another pitcher throw back-to-back no-hitters. I will go onside, because I don't think it's going to happen.
All right, now baseball's worst umpire, Angel Hernandez, is up to his old tricks in yesterday's Yankees game. Hernandez made another horrible, uncalled-for mistake, calling a strike on a pitch that was clearly a ball out of the zone. But worse yet, the pitcher stepped off the rubber before making the pitch, and Gleyber Torres actually stepped out of the batter's box because of this and wasn't even there when the pitch came in. So onside, offside, MLB needs to fire Angel Hernandez.
Offside, and here's why. Because he is low-hanging fruit for us all. And I would actually miss, in Rob Manfred's incompetent baseball, I would actually miss being able to make fun of Angel Hernandez. And remember, he filed a lawsuit because he wasn't getting an opportunity to umpire a World Series, and he said he was getting discriminated against. It wasn't because you were getting discriminated against. It's because you suck as an umpire. So I would actually miss Angel Hernandez being a talking point. So the MLB needs to fire Angel Hernandez. You know what, Angel? I still want you around. So I will go offside.
Offside.
Fun show today. Big thanks to Josh Pastner. Big thanks to Debbie Antonelli for stopping by, each and every one of you. Moist Mike, Stuart Kovacs. I'm taking UConn tonight, 81-73. Stu's taking UConn as well. And Samter is with the Boilermakers. So, Purdue, you lose tonight. Don't blame Donovan Clingan. Don't blame Danny Hurley. You blame Michael Samter. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye.